In 1901, a group of divers pulled something extraordinary from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. It had been sitting on the ocean floor for 2,000 years inside a Roman shipwreck, covered in coral and sediment, completely unrecognizable at first glance. When scientists finally cleaned it and examined it closely, they went silent. It was a bronze computing device with 30 interlocking gears of extraordinary precision, capable of predicting planetary motion, calculating eclipses, and tracking the movements of every known celestial body simultaneously. We called it the Antikythera Mechanism, and here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Nothing that complex would be built again for 1,400 years. That device wasn't an accident. It wasn't a miracle. It was a product of a civilization so far ahead of its time that we are still struggling to understand how it existed at all. And almost everything that civilization ever knew, every book, every discovery, every calculation, every map, was kept in one place until it wasn't. Let's go back to 285 BC. Alexandria, Egypt, the most cosmopolitan city on Earth, a place where Greek philosophers, Egyptian priests, Persian astronomers, and Indian mathematicians all lived and worked within walking distance of each other. Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals, had an idea so ambitious it sounds like fiction. He would build a single building and put every book ever written inside it. Not copies, the originals. He passed a law that every single ship docking in Alexandria's harbor would be boarded and searched. If any scroll was found on board, any book, any document, any manuscript from anywhere in the known world, it was confiscated, copied by hand, and the copy was returned to the owner. The library kept the original. Every ship, every port, every merchant, traveler, and diplomat passing through the most important harbor in the Mediterranean for 200 years. The result was between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls, the equivalent of 100,000 modern printed books, containing the complete accumulated knowledge of Greece, Egypt, Persia, Babylon, and India. The catalog alone, just the list of what was inside, was 120 scrolls long. This was not a library, it was the entire internet in one building in 200 BC.
Here is where it stops being impressive and starts being terrifying. The library didn't just collect knowledge, it generated it. The greatest scientists in human history were given government salaries, free housing, free food, and unlimited access to every book ever written on the single condition that they spend their days thinking. What they produced in that environment should be impossible. Eratosthenes, the library's chief librarian, in 240 BC, he heard a simple story that in the city of Syene, at noon on the summer solstice, the sun was directly overhead, so perfectly overhead that it cast no shadow whatsoever, not even in the bottom of a deep well. He took a stick. He planted it in the ground in Alexandria. He waited for the same moment, noon, summer solstice, and he measured the shadow. It was 7.2 degrees. He realized that if the sun was directly overhead in Syene, but casting a 7.2 degree shadow in Alexandria, the Earth's surface must be curved between the two cities. And if that curve represented 1/50th of a full circle, then the distance between the two cities must be 1/50th of the entire Earth's circumference. He did the math. He calculated the Earth's circumference within 1% of the actual correct answer. In 240 BC, using a stick. 1,500 years later, Christopher Columbus sailed west believing the Earth was significantly smaller than it actually is because he did not have access to Eratosthenes' calculation. If he had, he would have known he was nowhere near Asia. The entire geography of exploration changes with one scroll from the library. Then there was Aristarchus of Samos. Working in Alexandria 1,700 years before Copernicus, Aristarchus looked at a lunar eclipse the shadow of the Earth crossing the face of the Moon, and realized something that would get scientists killed for the next 2 millennia. The Sun was enormous, far larger than the Earth, incomprehensibly larger. And if the Sun was that much larger than the Earth, then logically, the smaller object must orbit the larger one. The Earth orbited the Sun, not the other way around. He proved it. He wrote it down. He put it in the library. And then, it burned. Because his work was lost, humanity spent the next 1700 years torturing and executing scientists who suggested the Earth was not the center of the universe. Galileo was placed under house arrest in 1633 for proposing the same idea Eratosthenes had already proven before the birth of Christ. One burned scroll, 1700 years of scientific persecution. But the name that should disturb you most is one most people have never heard: Hero of Alexandria. Working around 60 AD, an engineer and mathematician whose surviving works describe inventions so far ahead of their time that historians spent decades assuming the descriptions must be metaphorical. They were not metaphorical. Hero built the world's first steam engine. He called it the Aeola pile, a sealed metal sphere with 2 curved nozzles. Fill it with water, heat it from below, and the escaping steam spins the sphere at high speed. To the Romans watching it, it was a fascinating toy, a curiosity, something to show guests at dinner parties. Nobody connected it to a piston. Nobody thought to attach that spinning sphere to a wheel, a pump, or a mill. The Roman Empire was sitting one engineering insight away from the Industrial Revolution in the 1st century AD. The steam engine existed, the knowledge existed, the material existed. And then it was gone. The Industrial Revolution that changed the entire world happened in 1760 in England. Hero of Alexandria had the working prototype in 60 AD. The gap between those 2 dates is exactly the length of the library's destruction. But Hero was not finished. He built a programmable cart, a self-driving vehicle powered by falling weights, ropes, and a series of wooden pegs that could be repositioned to change the cart's direction. The pegs were binary instructions telling the machine how to behave. This was the world's first computer program. In 60 AD, he built a coin-operated vending machine that dispensed holy water. Drop a 5-drachma coin, its weight tips a lever, the lever opens a valve, holy water flows out, coin runs out of weight, valve closes. Automatic, mechanical, repeatable. Hero of Alexandria invented the vending machine, the steam engine, and binary programming code in the 1st century AD. None of it would be reinvented for over 1,000 years. And then there was Herophilus. Working in Alexandria in 250 BC, he did something no scientist had dared before. He studied the human body by actually opening it. He mapped the nervous system. He traced blood through the body. He identified the brain, not the heart, as the seat of human intelligence and consciousness. He understood how blood circulated through the human body 2,000 years before William Harvey received credit for discovering the same thing in 1628. Because Herophilus's work was lost, European medicine spent 1,500 years based on the theory of bodily humors, the idea that illness was caused by imbalances of blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Doctors treated disease by draining blood from already weakened patients. Millions died from cures based on ignorance that had already been corrected in Alexandria and then forgotten.
So how did it end? This is the part that history teachers always simplify into one dramatic moment. Julius Caesar burning his ships in the harbor, fire spreading to the docks, the library destroyed in one night. That is not what happened. Caesar's fire in 48 BC may have damaged a warehouse of scrolls near the harbor. It was a wound, not a death. The library died the way most great institutions die, slowly, bureaucratically, quietly. In 270 AD, the Emperor Aurelian destroyed the royal quarter during a civil war. In 391 AD, a Christian mob led by Patriarch Theophilus tore apart the daughter library because it was housed in a pagan temple. In 642 AD, Arab forces arrived and found almost nothing left to destroy. The real killer was not fire. The real killer was budget cuts, political indifference, religious zealotry, and the slow rot of papyrus in a humid coastal city. The Library of Alexandria was not murdered in one dramatic night. It was defunded, neglected, dismantled piece by people who did not understand what they were losing until there was nothing left to lose.